Chapter 1. Stop reacting, start observing. The puppet master of emotion. Most people believe they are free. They believe they make their own choices, think their own thoughts, and steer the ship of their own lives. But if you look closer, you will see a different reality. Most people are puppets. They are being pulled by invisible strings held by everyone and everything around them. When someone cuts you off in traffic and you spend the next 20 minutes fuming, your heart rate spiked and your day ruined. Who is in control? Not you. The stranger in the other car is pulling your strings. When someone leaves a hateful comment on your social media post and you spend your evening typing a furious rebuttal, trying to defend your honor to a person you will never meet, who is in control? The anonymous commenter is your puppet master. Reacting instantly is the clearest sign of internal weakness. It signals to the world that your internal state is for sale. It tells people that if they push a certain button, they can get a guaranteed result. This makes you predictable. It makes you easy to manipulate. It makes you a slave to your environment. Emotional maturity begins the moment you decide to cut the strings. It starts when you stop reacting and start observing. The law of the gap. Between every stimulus and every response, there is a space. In that space lies our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. The immature mind has a very narrow gap. Stimulus happens. Boom, response follows. It's a closed-loop circuit. Someone insults you, you insult them back. Someone rejects you, you cry or beg. Someone ignores you, you feel worthless. There is no time for thought, no time for logic, and no time for wisdom. The mature mind, however, works to widen that gap. When a stimulus hits, the mature person doesn't jump. They wait. They step back into the observational deck of their mind. They look at the emotion as if it were a strange weather pattern passing through. They say to themselves, "Isn't that interesting? I am feeling a surge of heat in my chest. I am feeling the urge to scream. I am feeling the sting of rejection." By observing the emotion, you detach from it. You are no longer the anger. You are the witness of the anger. And the moment you become the witness, the anger loses its power over you. Why we react? The biological trap. We must understand that our brains are wired for survival, not for emotional maturity. Deep inside your brain sits the amygdala, an ancient structure designed to keep you alive. Thousands of years ago, if a predator growled in the bushes, you didn't need to observe or contemplate. You needed to react. You needed to run or fight. The problem is that our modern world rarely presents us with tigers, yet our amygdala treats a snarky email from a boss or a disagreement with a spouse as a life or death threat. It triggers the same fight or flight response. Your blood pressure rises, your vision narrows, and your logical brain, the prefrontal cortex, shuts down. When you react instantly, you are functioning on the level of a cornered animal. To be a powerful human being, you must learn to override this biological reflex. You must train your logical brain to stay online even when your emotional brain is screaming. Real-world example: workplace conflict. Imagine you are in a meeting. You've worked for weeks on a presentation. Halfway through, a colleague interrupts you and says, "This data is completely wrong. You've clearly missed the point of this project." The immature reaction is immediate. You feel the heat rise in your neck. You snap back, "I didn't miss anything. Maybe you just don't understand the complexity of the data." Or worse, you shut down, lose your confidence, and stumble through the rest of the meeting, later complaining to your friends about how unfair the situation was. In both cases, you have lost. You have lost your composure, and you have likely lost the respect of the others in the room. The mature observation looks different. When the colleague speaks, you feel the sting. But instead of letting it reach your mouth, you pause. You observe the sting. You think, he is trying to assert dominance, or perhaps he is genuinely confused. You take a slow breath. In the 3 seconds of silence, you gain power. Then, you respond with calm detachment. "That's an interesting perspective. Which specific data point are you concerned about? Let's look at it together." By not reacting, you remain the most powerful person in the room. You have turned a potential explosion into a professional discussion. You have kept your dignity, and you have forced the other person to play on your level of composure rather than sinking to theirs. The social media trigger. We live in an era of outrage culture. Algorithms are literally designed to trigger your reactions. They want you to feel angry, shocked, or offended because that keeps you engaged. Every time you react to a post that triggers you, you are feeding the machine. You are allowing an algorithm to dictate your mood for the afternoon. If you spend your time arguing with strangers in the comments, you are hemorrhaging your most valuable resource, your mental energy. Emotional maturity in the digital age is the ability to scroll past a trigger without it leaving a mark on your soul. It is the realization that your opinion is not required in every debate, and your defense is not required against every insult. Training the pause, the 10-second rule. How do we actually build this skill? It is a muscle, and it must be trained. The next time you feel a surge of emotion, whether it's anger, jealousy, or hurt, impose a mandatory 10-second silence. Do not speak. Do not type. Do not make a face. Simply breathe and count. During those 10 seconds, perform a body scan. Notice your hands. Are they clenched? Relax them. Notice your jaw. Is it tight? Drop it. Notice your breath. Is it shallow? Take a deep belly breath. By focusing on your physical body, you are pulling resources away from the emotional fire in your brain. You are grounding yourself in reality. After the 10 seconds are up, ask yourself, will a reaction here serve my long-term goals, or will it just satisfy a short-term impulse? The power of being difficult to offend. There is a strange kind of freedom that comes from being difficult to offend. When you stop reacting, people lose their hooks into you. Think of a person who is easily offended as someone walking around with hooks all over their body. Anyone who passes by can snag a hook and pull them in any direction. But the emotionally mature person is smooth. There are no hooks. People can throw insults, they can throw shade, they can throw negativity, but there is nothing for it to catch onto. It simply slides off. This doesn't mean you are a doormat. On the contrary, it means you are a fortress. A doormat reacts by letting people walk over them. A fortress doesn't react because the pebbles being thrown at its walls don't do any damage. Summary of Chapter 1. Your emotions are like a wild horse. If you let the horse lead, you will end up in the mud. If you learn to sit in the saddle, observe the horse's movements, and guide it with a steady hand, you can go anywhere. Remember, control begins with observation. The moment you see your emotion as something separate from yourself, you have won the first and most important battle of your life. Repetition anchor. If you react, you lose control. If you observe, you gain power. If you react, you lose control. If you observe, you gain power. If you react, you lose control. If you observe, you gain power. Train the pause. Observe first, feel second, respond last. This is where your strength is born. Chapter 2. Your ego is not your identity, the invisible architect. From the moment you were old enough to understand language, a second version of you began to grow. This version wasn't made of flesh and bone, it was made of stories, labels, and expectations. This is your ego. The ego is the I that wants to be seen, the I that wants to be special, and most importantly, the I that is terrified of being ordinary or wrong. Most people spend their entire lives protecting this invisible architect. They build high walls of defensiveness around it. They decorate it with job titles, expensive cars, and social status. They feed it with the praise of others. But here is the hard truth that emotional maturity demands you face. Your ego is not you. Your ego is a mask you wear to interface with the world. If you mistake the mask for your face, you will live a life of constant anxiety. Why? Because a mask can be stolen, broken, or mocked. But your true self, your character, your resilience, your soul is untouchable. The fragility of the self-image. The ego is a bottomless pit. It is a leaky bucket that can never be filled. You can win an award today, and the ego will feel great for an hour. But by tomorrow morning, it is hungry again. It needs a new compliment, a new victory, a new reason to feel superior. Because the ego is built on the opinions of others, it is inherently fragile. It is a house of cards built on a windy beach. This is why people get so angry when they are criticized. To the ego, a piece of constructive criticism feels like a physical assault. When someone says, "Your work could be better," the ego hears, "You are worthless." Emotional maturity is the process of detaching your worth from your ego. It is the realization that you are the sky, and your ego is just a cloud passing through. Clouds can be dark, stormy, or bright, but they do not change the nature of the sky. The trap of winning. Nowhere is the ego more destructive than in our relationships. Have you ever been in an argument where you knew you were wrong halfway through, but you kept fighting anyway? You kept shouting, twisting facts, and bringing up mistakes the other person made 3 years ago. Why do we do this? Because the ego would rather destroy a relationship than admit a mistake. To the ego, admitting you are wrong feels like a death. It feels like losing power. But look at the cost. You win the argument, but you lose the heart of the person you love. You win the point, but you lose the respect of your colleagues. This is the hallmark of emotional immaturity. Prioritizing the protection of your ego over the health of your life. The mature person knows that losing an argument to preserve a connection is a sign of immense internal strength. They don't need to be right because their identity isn't tied to being perfect. The social mirror. We live in the age of the curated ego. Social media has turned our egos into brands. We post the best versions of our lives, waiting for the likes to tell us we are valuable. This is a dangerous game. If you let the world tell you how great you are also giving them the power to tell you how miserable you are. When you seek validation, you are essentially saying, "I don't know my own value. Please tell me what I'm worth." This makes you an emotional beggar. A person who is controlled by the need for approval is a person who can never be free. They will always be dancing to a tune played by someone else. Emotional maturity means shifting your focus from validation to verification. You don't need the world to validate you. You need to verify your own character through your actions. Real-world example, the promotion denied. Imagine 2 employees, Alex and Sarah, who are both passed over for a promotion they felt they deserved. Alex's ego-driven reaction. Alex is devastated. His ego feels insulted. He spends the week gossiping about the person who got the job. He stops working hard, thinking, "If they don't appreciate me, I won't give them my best." He sees himself as a victim. His ego is so bruised that he can't see his own areas for improvement. He eventually quits in a fit of rage, leaving his career in shambles. Sarah's mature response. Sarah feels the sting of disappointment, but she doesn't let it define her. She observes the feeling. She realizes that her identity is not the manager, it is a professional who learns. She goes to her boss and asks, "What skills was I missing that would have made me the right choice?" She uses the setback as data. She detaches her self-worth from the title and attaches it to her growth. 6 months later, Sarah is a better version of herself. Alex is still angry at a world he thinks is unfair. The difference is ego. The art of self-correction. To become emotionally mature, you must learn to laugh at your ego. When you feel that surge of defensiveness, that "how dare they say that to me" feeling, stop. Smile at it. Recognize it as a survival mechanism that is no longer serving you. Practice the death of the ego in small ways. Admit a mistake quickly and clearly. Don't add "but" or "because." Just say, "I was wrong. I'm sorry." Give credit away. When you succeed, find someone else to thank. Ask for feedback. Actively seek out the truth, even if it hurts your ego's feelings. Listen without defending. If someone criticizes you, listen for the 1% of truth in what they are saying, rather than the 99% of wrongness. Detach from results, attach to growth. Your ego is obsessed with the trophy. Your soul is obsessed with the journey. When you detach from the ego, you realize that you don't need to prove anything to anyone. You don't need to prove you are the smartest person in the room. You don't need to prove you are the most successful in your family. You don't need to prove you are a good person. When you stop trying to prove, you have the energy to actually improve. Proving is exhausting. It requires constant maintenance, constant lying, and constant performance. Improving is exhilarating. It is honest, it is grounded, and it leads to real power. The man who is trying to prove he is strong is easily intimidated. The man who is simply working on becoming stronger is untouchable. Summary of Chapter 2. You are not your thoughts. You are not your titles. You are not your mistakes. You are the one who observes all of these things. When your ego screams for attention, let it scream, but don't let it take the wheel. The ego makes a wonderful servant but a terrible master. If you let it lead you, it will lead you into conflict, insecurity, and isolation. If you lead it, you can use it as a tool for high performance without letting it destroy your peace. Repetition anchor. You don't need to prove, you need to improve. You don't need to prove, you need to improve. You don't need to prove, you need to improve. Detach from the mask. Attach to the growth. This is how you build a strength that cannot be shaken by the opinions of the world. Chapter 3. Silence is a weapon. Use it. The great deception of noise. We live in an age of noise. We are surrounded by a culture that tells us that if we aren't speaking, we aren't being heard. If we aren't defending ourselves, we are losing. If we don't have an opinion on every headline, we are irrelevant. We are taught that the person who speaks the loudest, the fastest, and the most aggressively is the person with the most power. But this is a lie. In reality, constant talking is often a leak in your power. It is a sign of internal discomfort. When you feel the desperate need to fill a silence, or the burning urge to explain your side of a story to someone who doesn't even care, you are revealing your insecurity. You are showing that you are not grounded in your own truth. Emotional maturity is the realization that silence is not a void, it is a presence. It is a controlled, focused energy. It is a shield that protects your peace and a weapon that shifts the power dynamics of any room you walk into. The psychology of discomfort. Why is silence so hard for most people? Because silence acts as a mirror. In the absence of noise, we are forced to face ourselves. In a social setting, when a conversation lulls, the person with the lowest emotional maturity will be the first to break the silence. They will make a joke, gossip, or bring up a random topic just to escape the awkwardness. But here is the secret of the powerful. Silence is only awkward for the person who lacks self-control. If you can sit in silence without fidgeting, without looking at your phone, and without feeling the need to explain yourself, you immediately project an aura of authority. You are signaling that you are comfortable in your own skin. You are signaling that you do not need the approval or the entertainment of others to feel secure. In conflict, silence is even more potent. When someone attacks you, they are expecting a reaction. They are handing you a ball of fire and waiting for you to catch it. If you remain silent and simply look at them, you aren't catching the fire. You are letting it fall at their feet. They are left holding their own anger, their own embarrassment, and their own lack of composure. Silence as a shield against disrespect. Imagine you are at a dinner or a social gathering, and someone makes a passive-aggressive joke at your expense. The room goes quiet for a split second, waiting to see how you will respond. The immature response is to snap back with a clever insult or to laugh nervously to hide the hurt. Both responses tell the aggressor that they got to you. You've entered their game. You are now playing on their court. The mature response, the powerful response, is silence. You stop eating or talking. You turn your head slowly and look them directly in the eyes. You don't frown. You don't glare. You simply look at them for 3 to 5 seconds. Then, you turn back to the person you were talking to and continue your previous sentence as if the interruption never happened. That silence was a weapon. In those 5 seconds, you communicated more than 1,000 words could. You communicated, "That was beneath me. You are being childish. I am not affected." You have reclaimed the power of the room without raising your voice. The grey rock method. In psychology, there is a technique used to deal with toxic or manipulative people called the grey rock method. The goal is to make yourself as uninteresting as a grey rock. You don't argue. You don't defend. You don't offer details about your life. You respond with yes, no, or I see. Why is this so effective? Because toxic people and emotional vampires thrive on your reaction. They want your anger. It makes them feel powerful. They want your tears. It gives them control. When you give them silence, or the bare minimum of engagement, they starve. They lose interest and move on to a target that is easier to trigger. Strategic silence is the ultimate no to anyone trying to drain your energy. It is you saying, "My peace is not for sale, and I refuse to spend my emotional currency on you." The economy of words. Less is more. The most influential people in history have often been those who spoke the least. Think of the quiet professional. Think of the leader who listens to the entire board meeting for an hour and then speaks one single, definitive sentence at the end. Because they speak so rarely, their words carry the weight of a mountain. When you talk too much, your words lose their value. You become predictable. You reveal your hand. You give people information they can use against you later. But when you are a person of few words, people listen when you open your mouth. They lean in. They respect your boundaries because they don't know exactly where they are. Emotional maturity is learning the wait principle, WAIT. Why am I talking? Before you speak, ask yourself, is what I am about to say more valuable than the silence it is breaking? Am I speaking to provide value, or just to satisfy my ego? Am I trying to convince someone who has already made up their mind? If the answer is no, then silence is your best move. The internal sanctuary. Silence isn't just for social power, it's for internal survival. Your mind is a garden. If you let every noise, every opinion, and every piece of gossip into your garden, it will become a junkyard. Strategic silence means you stop engaging with things that don't matter. You don't have to reply to the text that was meant to annoy you. You don't have to correct the person who is wrong on the internet. You don't have to explain your life choices to your judgmental relatives. When you stop responding, you save your energy for what truly matters: your goals, your family, and your internal peace. You realize that you don't owe the world an explanation for who you are. Your results will speak for you. Your character will speak for you. Your silence will speak for you. Training the silence. How do you start using this weapon? The 5-second rule. In your next conversation, when the other person finishes speaking, wait 5 seconds before you respond. Notice how they react. Often, they will keep talking and reveal even more information. The no defense challenge. For one whole day, if someone criticizes you or disagrees with you, do not defend yourself. Simply say, "That's an interesting perspective," or "I'll think about that." Watch how much energy you save by not winning a useless battle. The phone detox. Practice silence from the digital world. Turn off notifications. Stop the constant input of other people's voices. Learn to sit in a room with nothing but your own thoughts for 20 minutes. Summary of Chapter 3. Silence is the ultimate sign of self-possession. It tells the world that you are the master of your internal environment. It shows that you have the discipline to wait, the strength to ignore, and the wisdom to know that not everyone deserves your energy. The immature person wants the last word. The mature person wants the last laugh, and they know that silence is often the shortest path to it. Repetition anchor. Not every response deserves your energy. Not every response deserves your energy. Not every response deserves your energy. Let your silence be the wall that negativity cannot climb. Let it be the authority that commands the room. Use it strategically, and you will find that your words gain a power they never had before. Chapter 4. Control your emotional triggers, the remote control of the soul. Imagine you are walking through life, and every person you meet is holding a remote control. On that remote, there are buttons labeled anger, insecurity, jealousy, and shame. Whenever someone wants to change your mood, they simply press a button, and you respond exactly as programmed. Does that sound like a life of strength? Does that sound like the life of a leader or a person of character? No, that is the life of a biological machine. We all have triggers. A trigger is an external event, a word, a look, a delay, or a criticism that sparks an intense, often irrational emotional response. To the emotionally immature, a trigger is an excuse for an explosion. To the emotionally mature, a trigger is a diagnostic tool. It is a map that points directly to the parts of yourself that are still unhealed, unexamined, and weak. Mastering your triggers is not about not feeling. It is about ensuring that no one else can push your buttons without your permission. It is about reclaiming the remote control of your own soul. The anatomy of a trigger. Why do we have triggers? From a biological perspective, a trigger is your brain's way of sounding a red alert. Somewhere in your past, you experienced a situation that felt dangerous, shameful, or painful. Your brain bookmarked that feeling. Now, when a similar situation arises, your brain skips the thinking phase and goes straight into defensive mode. If you were bullied as a child for being slow, you might find yourself triggered today when a colleague asks you a simple question about your progress. Your brain doesn't see a helpful colleague, it sees the bully from 20 years ago. You feel the heat in your face, the tightness in your chest, and the urge to snap back or hide. This is an amygdala hijack. Your emotional brain has taken your logical brain hostage. When you are triggered, you are no longer living in the present. You are a ghost of your past, fighting a battle that ended years ago. Emotional maturity is the ability to step out of the past and stand firmly in the present. The mirror effect. What your triggers say about you. One of the hardest truths to accept is this. Your triggers are not about the other person. They are about you. If someone calls you a purple elephant, you don't get angry. You probably laugh. Why? Because you know, with 100% certainty, that you are not a purple elephant. There is no hook in you for that insult to catch on to. But if someone calls you lazy, selfish, or incompetent, and you flare up in rage, it is because some part of you, even a tiny, subconscious part, worries that they might be right. Or, it's because you have a desperate need to be seen as the opposite of those things. A trigger only works if there is a hook. If you remove the hook, the insult slides off you like water off a stone. When you feel triggered, instead of pointing your finger outward and saying, "How dare you say that?" point your finger inward and ask, "Why do I care so much about what this person thinks? What wound is this touching?" This shift from blame to curiosity is the birth of real strength. Common triggers and the mature response. Let's look at the 3 most common triggers that destroy people's peace and how a mature mind handles them. 1. The trigger of disrespect. Someone talks over you in a meeting, or a waiter is rude to you. Immature reaction. You demand respect. You get louder. You insult them back. You let your ego defend its territory. Mature response. You realize that their rudeness is a reflection of their character, not your worth. You remain calm. You speak with a quiet, steady tone. You realize that a king does not need to tell people he is a king. Everyone already knows by the way he carries himself. 2. The trigger of criticism. A partner tells you that you didn't do a good job on a task. Immature reaction. You immediately bring up their mistakes from last week. You become defensive. You shut down and refuse to speak. Mature response. You listen for the data. You ask yourself, is there truth in this? If yes, you accept it and improve. If no, you realize the criticism is based on their own perspective or mood, and you let it go. 3. The trigger of rejection. You don't get the likes you expected, or someone doesn't text you back. Immature reaction. You feel a dip in self-esteem. You send follow-up texts fueled by anxiety. You spiral into "I'm not good enough" thinking. Mature response. You remind yourself that your value is inherent. You are a complete person whether they text back or not. You recognize that you cannot control others, only your own state of mind. Breaking the cycle, the trace and erase technique. To master your triggers, you must move from reactive to proactive. You can't wait until you're in the middle of a screaming match to start practicing. You need a system. Step 1. Identification, the trace. Carry a trigger log for 1 week. Every time you feel a spike of negative emotion, anger, shame, anxiety, write down. What happened? The external event. What did I feel? The physical sensation. What is the story I am telling myself? E.g., they don't value me, I'm going to fail. Step 2. Analysis, the understanding. Look at your log at the end of the week. You will see patterns. You will see that you aren't actually mad at your boss. You're mad because you feel unseen, just like you did in high school. Once you name the monster, it loses half its power. Step 3. Reprogramming, the erase. Create a new protocol for your top triggers. If your trigger is being criticized, Your new protocol is: take one deep breath, say thank you for the feedback, and wait 10 minutes before deciding if I agree. By pre-deciding your response, you take the power away from the amygdala and give it back to your conscious mind. The power of calm detachment. The goal is to reach a state of calm detachment. This doesn't mean you are cold or unfeeling. It means you are unhookable. Think of a professional athlete. If the opposing team's fans are screaming insults at them, does the athlete stop the game to argue with a fan in row 10? No. If they did, they would lose the game. They stay focused on the ball. They are detached from the noise because they are attached to the goal. When you master your triggers, you become that athlete. The world can scream, the world can judge, the world can try to push your buttons, but you stay focused on your purpose. You are so grounded in your own reality that the vibrations of other people's negativity simply cannot reach your core. Summary of Chapter 4. Strength is not found in how hard you can hit back. Strength is found in how little you can be moved. Every time you refuse to be triggered, you are performing a revolutionary act. You are declaring that you are a free human being. You are telling the world, you can say what you want and you can do what you want, but you do not have a seat at the table of my internal peace. Awareness is the hammer that breaks the cycle. Once you see the trigger for what it is, a shadow from the past, it can no longer control your future. Repetition anchor. They control you only if they can trigger you. They control you only if they can trigger you. They control you only if they can trigger you. Take back your remote control. Become the master of your own responses. Real power begins when you decide to be unshakable. Chapter 5. Stop seeking validation from others. The invisible chains of approval. Imagine you are a performer on a stage. Every move you make, every word you speak, and every outfit you wear is designed for one thing: the applause of the audience. If they clap, you feel a rush of euphoria. You feel worthy, successful, and alive. But if the audience is silent, or worse, if they boo, you crumble. You feel like a failure. Your entire sense of self-worth is tied to the movement of a stranger's hands hitting each other. Now, look at your life. Are you living for yourself, or are you performing for an audience? Most people are trapped in an invisible cage of what will they think. They don't choose the career they want. They choose the one that sounds impressive at a family dinner. They don't buy the clothes they like. They buy the ones that fit the current trend. They don't speak their truth. They speak the version of the truth that will get the most likes or nods. Emotional maturity is the process of walking off that stage, turning your back on the audience, and realizing that the only person whose applause matters is the person looking back at you in the mirror. The validation drug. Validation is a drug. Like any drug, it creates a high followed by a devastating low. When someone tells you you're smart, beautiful, or successful, your brain releases a hit of dopamine. It feels good. But because that feeling came from the outside, you don't own it. It's a loan, not an investment. And the person who gave it to you can take it back at any time. When you become addicted to validation, you give everyone you meet the power to regulate your emotions. If your boss praises you, you're happy. If a stranger ignores your text, you're depressed. If your partner criticizes your hair, your whole day is ruined. This is a state of emotional dependency. You are an emotional beggar, walking through life with a tin cup, hoping people will drop a few coins of approval into it so you can feel okay for another hour. Real strength is becoming your own source of currency. It is moving from being externally referenced to internally referenced. The shapeshifter's curse. One of the most tragic side effects of seeking validation is that you become a shapeshifter. You become so attuned to what others want that you lose track of who you actually are. In one group of friends, you are the funny one. In another, you are the serious one. Around your parents, you are the obedient one. You change your opinions, your tone of voice, and even your values depending on who is in the room. You do this because you are terrified of rejection. You think, if I show them the real me, they might not like it. So I'll show them the version of me they want to see. The problem is, when people clap for a shapeshifter, you don't feel seen. You know deep down they are clapping for a mask, not for you. This leads to a profound sense of loneliness, even when you are surrounded by people. Emotional maturity says, I would rather be hated for who I am than loved for who I am not. There is a massive, untapped power in being willing to be the villain in someone else's story if it means being the hero in your own. Social media, the digital hall of mirrors. We cannot talk about validation today without talking about the digital slot machine in your pocket. Social media has industrialized the need for approval. Every like, view, and comment is a microdose of validation. We have begun to outsource our memories and our self-worth to an algorithm. We no longer go to dinner to enjoy the food. We go to take a photo of the food so that people we haven't spoken to in 10 years can validate that we have a cool life. If you find yourself checking your phone every 5 minutes after posting something, you are in the validation trap. You are letting a piece of glass and some code tell you if you are valuable. A mature person uses social media as a tool for contribution, not as a mirror for their ego. They post, they put the phone down, and they go back to living their actual life. Their worth is not up for a public vote. Why being UN validatable makes you dangerous. There is a core line you must internalize. The moment you stop needing approval, you become dangerous. Why dangerous? Because a person who doesn't need approval cannot be controlled. You cannot bribe them with praise. You cannot threaten them with criticism. You cannot manipulate them with the fear of being cancelled or left out. A person who is self-validated is a person who can speak the truth when everyone else is lying. They can take risks that others are too afraid to take. They can leave toxic environments because they aren't afraid of being alone. This is the ultimate form of freedom. When you stop looking for the exit sign in other people's eyes, you finally start following your own internal compass. Real-world example, the people pleaser versus the truth teller. Consider two people in a corporate office. Person A is a people pleaser. They say yes to every request. They never disagree with the boss, even when the boss is wrong. They stay late not because they are productive, but because they want to be seen staying late. Everyone likes person A, but nobody respects them. When big decisions are made, person A is ignored because they have no backbone. Their need for validation has made them invisible. Person B is a truth teller. They are polite, but they are honest. If a project is failing, they say so. If they need to leave at 5 p.m. to see their family, they leave, regardless of who is watching. They don't seek likes, they seek results. Person B might be seen as difficult by some, but they are respected by all. They are the ones who get promoted, the ones who get called when there is a real problem to solve. They don't need the room to like them. They need the room to be better because they were in it. How to build internal authority. How do you break the addiction? How do you stop being a beggar and start being a king? It requires a shift in your inner judge. 1. The whose voice is this? Filter. The next time you feel a pang of worry about an opinion, ask, whose voice is this? Is it your mother's? Your old high school rivals? The internet's? Realize that 99% of the voices in your head are not yours. Consciously choose to silence them and ask, what do I think of this? 2. Practice disappointing people. This is validation rehab. Intentionally say no to a small request that you would usually say yes to just to be nice. Feel the discomfort. Notice that the world didn't end. By disappointing others, you are practicing being true to yourself. 3. Set internal KPIs, key performance indicators. Instead of asking, did they like my presentation? Ask, did I speak my truth? Did I prepare well? Did I stay calm under pressure? If you met your internal standards, the external result is irrelevant. 4. The 1-year rule. When you're worried about what someone thinks of you, ask, will this person's opinion matter to me in 1 year? Usually, the answer is no. If it won't matter then, it shouldn't control you now. Summary of Chapter 5. Seeking validation is a race with no finish line. No matter how much you get, it will never be enough. It is a hunger that grows the more you feed it. Emotional maturity is the realization that you are already enough. You don't need a like to be valid. You don't need a promotion to be worthy. You don't need a partner to be complete. These things are additions to your life, not the foundation of it. When you stop seeking validation, you stop being a servant to the world's whims. You become grounded. You become steady. You become dangerous to the status quo because you are finally, truly, free. Repetition anchor. The moment you stop needing approval, you become dangerous. The moment you stop needing approval, you become dangerous. The moment you stop needing approval, you become dangerous. Stand tall in your own truth. The world will eventually adjust to your self-respect, but even if it doesn't, you won't care. Chapter 6. Discipline your emotions like a muscle, the myth of the natural. We often look at people who remain calm during a crisis, the surgeon who keeps a steady hand when a complication arises, the pilot who lands a failing plane, the leader who speaks with total composure while their company is crumbling, and we think they are just born that way. We assume they have some magical calm gene that we lack. We tell ourselves, I'm just a reactive person, that's just my personality. This is a lie. It is a comforting lie because it absolves you of the responsibility to change. The truth is that emotional control is not a personality trait. It is a skill. And like any skill, whether it's playing the violin, coding software, or bench pressing 300 pounds, it is developed through repetition, resistance, and discipline. Nobody walks into a gym for the first time and lifts the heaviest weight. And nobody achieves emotional maturity by accident. It is trained. It is practiced. And it is built through the deliberate pursuit of discomfort. The emotional gym. If you want your biceps to grow, you have to put them under tension. You have to lift something heavy enough to create microscopic tears in the muscle fiber so that it can heal back stronger. Your emotions work exactly the same way. Every time you are in a situation that makes you want to scream, cry, or run away, you are standing in an emotional gym. That feeling of internal tension, that burning sensation in your chest when someone insults you, is the weight. The immature person drops the weight. They react. They vent. They let the emotion out because they can't handle the pressure. But the mature person holds the weight. They sit with the tension. They breathe through the fire. They realize that by not reacting, they are doing a rep. Every second you remain calm while your mind is screaming for chaos, your emotional muscle is getting stronger. Micro-workouts. The power of small inconveniences. You don't wait for a life-altering tragedy to start training your emotions. If the first time you try to use your emotional muscles is during a divorce or bankruptcy, you will fail. You must train every day on the small weights. Think about your daily life. It is filled with micro-workouts. The red light. You're late for a meeting and the light turns red. Your blood pressure rises. This is a rep. Can you sit there, relax your shoulders, and breathe? The slow internet. The page won't load. You feel the urge to huff or bang the desk. This is a rep. Can you remain indifferent to the delay? The rude comment. Someone makes a snide remark in the grocery store line. This is a heavy rep. Can you look at them with neutral eyes and say nothing? If you cannot control your emotions when a web page is slow, you will never control them when your life is on the line. Stop viewing inconveniences as annoyances. Start viewing them as free training sessions provided by the universe to make you untouchable. The anatomy of discipline versus suppression. It is vital to understand the difference between emotional discipline and emotional suppression. Suppression is stuffing it down. It's pretending you aren't angry while your teeth are clenched and your heart is racing. Suppression is dangerous. It's like holding steam inside a pressure cooker with no valve. Eventually, it will explode. Discipline, however, is transformation. It is feeling the full force of the anger, acknowledging it, and then choosing a different path. Discipline says, I feel the urge to lash out, but I am the master of my hands and my tongue. I will use this energy for something else. A disciplined person isn't someone who doesn't feel. They are someone who feels more than others but has the internal strength to govern those feelings. They are the rider of the elephant. The elephant, the emotion, is huge and powerful, but the rider, the disciplined mind, directs where it goes. Compound exercises. Conflict and pressure. In the gym, compound exercises like squats or deadlifts build the most strength because they use the whole body. In life, your compound exercises are high-pressure situations and interpersonal conflicts. When someone attacks your character, that is a 500-pound deadlift for your soul. Most people's backs snap under that weight. They get defensive, they get mean, and they lose their dignity. But if you have been training on the small weights, you can handle the load. The protocol for high-pressure moments. Drop the story. When pressure hits, your mind starts telling a story. They're trying to ruin me. I'm going to lose everything. Stop the story. Stick to the facts. Focus on the physical. Tighten your core. Ground your feet. Control your heart rate through slow, nasal breathing. The observer position. Imagine you are a scientist watching a specimen. The specimen is you experiencing stress. By observing yourself, you create the distance needed for logic to take over. Voluntary hardship. Building the reservoir. If you only train when life forces you to, you will always be reactive. The truly strong seek out resistance. This is why many of the most emotionally stable people in the world engage in voluntary hardship. Cold exposure. Taking a freezing shower every morning is not about health, it's about emotional discipline. Your brain screams get out, but you stay in. You are training your mind to override your biological impulses. Silence and solitude. Spending an hour alone with no phone, no music, and no distractions is hard. It forces you to face your own internal noise. Physical exhaustion. Pushing your body to its limit in the gym teaches you that feelings of quitting are just suggestions, not commands. When you voluntarily put yourself in uncomfortable positions, you build a reservoir of resilience. Then, when life throws a real problem at you, you can look at it and say, I've been through worse than this by choice. This cannot break me. The danger of the off day. In fitness, consistency is everything. If you train for 3 days and then eat junk and sit on the couch for 4, you make no progress. Emotional discipline is a 24/7 commitment. You cannot be mature at work but immature at home with your spouse. You cannot be calm when things are going well but a victim when things go wrong. If you give yourself permission to lose your temper just this once, you are weakening the muscle. You are teaching your brain that your discipline is conditional. Real strength is found in being the same person in the dark that you are in the light. It is being as disciplined with your thoughts as you are with your actions. Every moment is an opportunity to strengthen or weaken your character. There are no off days in the school of internal power. Summary of Chapter 6. Emotional control is the ultimate competitive advantage. While the rest of the world is reacting, panicking, and being swept away by the tides of their feelings, the disciplined person stands still. They see clearly. They act decisively. Do not pray for a life without stress. Pray for the discipline to handle any amount of stress. Stop avoiding the things that trigger you and start using them as your equipment. Your life is your gym. Your challenges are your weights. Your peace is your trophy. Repetition anchor. Calm is trained. Control is practiced. Strength is built. Calm is trained. Control is practiced. Strength is built. Calm is trained. Control is practiced. Strength is built. Pick up the weight of your emotions today. Don't put it down until you are stronger. Chapter 7. Detach from outcomes, the root of all misery. We have been conditioned from birth to be goal-oriented. We are told that happiness is a destination, a place we arrive at once we get the degree, the marriage, the house, or the promotion. We are taught to tie our emotional state directly to the finish line. But there is a fatal flaw in this logic. You do not control the finish line. You can do everything right and still lose. You can be the most qualified candidate and not get the job. You can be the most loving partner and still be betrayed. You can invest your life savings into a perfect business plan and watch the market collapse. Emotional immaturity is the refusal to accept this reality. It is a state of attachment where your peace of mind is a hostage to fortune. When things go your way, you are high. When they don't, you are crushed. This makes you emotionally volatile and perpetually anxious. Real strength, the kind that makes you untouchable, is found in the art of detachment. The circle of control. To understand detachment, you must draw a line in the sand. On one side is what you control, on the other is what you do not. What you control, your effort, your preparation, your integrity, your response to setbacks, your focus in this present moment. What you do not control, the results, the weather, the economy, other people's decisions, the timing of your success. The emotionally mature person lives entirely on the controllable side of the line. They put 100% of their energy into the process and 0% into the expectation. Think of it like an archer. The archer can control how much they have practiced. They can control the tension of the bow, the sharpness of the arrow, and the steadiness of their breath. But the moment the arrow leaves the string, the archer is no longer in control. A sudden gust of wind can blow it off course. A bird can fly into its path. The target could move. If the archer's happiness depends on hitting the bullseye, they will live in a state of fear while the arrow is in the air. But if the archer's happiness depends on the perfection of their form, they are at peace the moment the arrow is released. They have already won because they did their part perfectly. Anxiety is a lack of detachment. Anxiety is nothing more than your mind trying to live in a future that hasn't happened yet, attempting to control variables that aren't yours to move. When you are attached to an outcome, you are constantly checking the scoreboard. Did they reply yet? Did the boss see my work? Is the market going up? This constant checking drains your energy. It makes you desperate. And ironically, desperation is the enemy of success. People can smell attachment. In a negotiation, the person who needs the deal the most has the least power. In dating, the person who is most attached to a specific result usually pushes the other person away. Detachment is your greatest negotiating tool. When you are willing to walk away, when you are okay with either result, you hold all the cards. You are no longer a victim of the outcome. You are the master of your own state of being. The high effort, low attachment framework. Detachment is often misunderstood as being lazy or indifferent. People think, if I don't care about the outcome, why would I work hard? This is a misunderstanding. Detachment is not about not caring. It is about shifting where you care. The mature person practices high effort, low attachment. They work harder than everyone else. They obsess over the details. They stay late. They study. They grind. But, and this is the crucial distinction, they do it for the sake of the work itself, not for the trophy at the end. They view the work as the reward. If the promotion comes, great. If it doesn't, they are still the person who did the work, and that internal growth can never be taken away. They haven't lost anything because their value was never tied to the title in the first place. Real-world example, the presentation. Imagine you have to give a major presentation to a group of investors. The attached person, they are terrified. They think, if I don't get this funding, my company will die. I'll be a failure. Their hands shake. They stumble over their words because they are thinking about the result instead of the speech. When the investors say no, the attached person falls into a deep depression. They feel personally attacked. The detached person, they prepare for 20 hours. They know their slides backward and forward. They think, I'm going to give the best presentation I am capable of giving. The rest is up to them. They are calm, charismatic, and present. They focus on the connection with the audience. When the investors say no, the detached person thinks, okay, the data shows they aren't the right fit. What did I learn from my performance that I can use for the next one? The detached person moves on instantly. The attached person wastes weeks mourning a loss that was never theirs to control. Dealing with disappointment. The data point reframe. In the school of emotional maturity, there is no such thing as failure. There is only data. When you are detached from outcomes, a rejection isn't a no to your worth, it's just a signal from the universe. It's like a scientist in a lab. If an experiment doesn't work, the scientist doesn't cry and say, the chemicals hate me. They simply say, that combination didn't produce the result. Let's try a different one. Detachment allows you to pivot faster than anyone else. While your competitors are busy being heartbroken and nursing their egos, you are already on to the next iteration. Your lack of attachment makes you fast. It makes you resilient. It makes you a hard target for life to hit. The freedom of amor fati. The Stoics had a phrase, amor fati, the love of fate. It means not just accepting what happens, but loving it. If the outcome was good, love it. If the outcome was a disaster, love it even more because it provides the resistance necessary to build your character. When you detach from outcomes, you stop fighting with reality. You stop saying, "This shouldn't be happening." Instead, you say, "This is happening. How can I use this to my advantage?" This is the ultimate form of emotional maturity. It is the realization that you are the alchemist of your own life. You can take the lead of a bad outcome and turn it into the gold of a lesson. Summary of Chapter 7. The world is a chaotic, unpredictable place. If you tie your happiness to its whims, you will never be at peace. You will be a leaf in the wind, blown about by every change in circumstances. Emotional maturity is the decision to be the wind, not the leaf. Do the work. Put in the hours. Master your craft. Give your absolute best to every person you meet and every task you perform. But the moment you finish, let it go. Turn your back on the result and walk toward the next challenge. Your strength is not in what you achieve. Your strength is in who you become while you are trying. Repetition anchor. Do the work. Release the outcome. Do the work. Release the outcome. Do the work. Release the outcome. Release the weight of expectation, and you will find that you can finally fly. Chapter 8. Learn to be unbothered. The definition of the unbothered mind. There is a common misconception about what it means to be unbothered. Many people hear that word and imagine someone who is cold, cynical, or indifferent, someone who simply doesn't care about anything. They picture a person who is detached from reality, a hermit on a mountain who has checked out of society. But true emotional maturity isn't about checked-out indifference. It is about controlled focus. To be unbothered is to have an internal filter so strong that it only allows the things that matter to reach your core. It is the ability to walk through a storm of gossip, criticism, and negativity without letting a single drop of it touch your skin. It is the realization that your attention is the most valuable currency you possess, and you refuse to spend it on cheap people or cheap situations. While the rest of the world is busy being offended, outraged, and reactive, the unbothered person remains steady. They aren't trying to be calm, they simply are calm because they have realized a fundamental truth: what doesn't control your mind doesn't control your life. The high cost of being bothered. Every time you get bothered by something trivial, a rude comment from a stranger, a passive-aggressive remark from a cousin, or an anonymous insult on the internet, you are paying a tax. You are paying with your time, your energy, and your mental health. Think about the last time someone bothered you. Maybe they questioned your intelligence or criticized your appearance. You likely spent the next 3 hours replaying the conversation in your head. You thought of the perfect comeback you should have said. You felt the surge of cortisol in your body. You were distracted while playing with your children or working on your business. In that moment, that person, who might not even be thinking about you, was the master of your life. They were living rent-free in your head. They were stealing your joy without even trying. Emotional maturity is the process of evicting these tenants. It is setting the rent so high that only the most valuable thoughts can afford to live in your mind. Being unbothered is the ultimate act of self-respect. It is you saying, "My peace is too expensive for your pettiness." The mirror of projection. To become unbothered, you must understand the psychology of the botherer. When someone attacks you, criticizes you, or tries to bring you down, they are rarely talking about you. They are talking about themselves. They are projecting their own insecurities, their own unhealed wounds, and their own limitations onto you. The person who calls you arrogant is often someone who feels inferior. The person who calls you greedy is often someone who is terrified of scarcity. The person who gossips about your failures is someone who has no wins of their own to celebrate. When you realize that other people's opinions are just a confession of their own character, you stop taking them personally. It's like watching a movie. If a character in a movie yells at the screen, you don't get offended. You know they aren't talking to you. They are just playing a role. The unbothered person sees the world as a stage of people playing out their own internal dramas. You can observe the drama, you can even emphasize with it, but you don't have to join the cast. The so what? Technique. The fastest way to train the unbothered muscle is the so what technique. This is a mental exercise that forces you to follow the threat to its logical conclusion. Trigger: someone said I'm not as good at my job as I think I am. Response: so what? Thought: well, people might believe them. Response: so what? Thought: then my reputation might suffer. Response: so what? Conclusion: even if my reputation suffers, I still have my skills, I still have my integrity, and I can still provide value. Their words don't change my ability to perform. When you so what your way to the bottom of a fear, you usually find that the threat is an illusion. It is a paper tiger. Once you realize that their opinion has no power to change your bank account, your health, or your character, you become naturally unbothered. Real-world example: the hater in the office. Consider a situation where a colleague is spreading a rumor that you only got your position because you know someone, undermining your hard work. The bothered person, they go into the office with a heavy heart. They try to explain themselves to everyone. They become defensive. They confront the colleague and get into a shouting match. They lose their focus and start making mistakes in their work. By being bothered, they have actually proven the colleague's point by appearing unstable and unprofessional. The unbothered person, they hear the rumor and they smile. They think that's a sad way for them to spend their time. They go into the office and do their job with 110% excellence. They are kind to everyone, including the person spreading the rumor. Why? Because they know the truth doesn't need to be defended, it only needs to be lived. Eventually, their results become so loud that the rumor dies of starvation. The unbothered person wins by outperforming the noise. The art of selective ignorance. We live in the information age, but the secret to emotional maturity is selective ignorance. You cannot be unbothered if you are constantly consuming every piece of information that comes your way. If you read every comment, watch every news cycle, and listen to every piece of gossip, you are voluntarily poisoning your own well. You are inviting the world to bother you. The mature person is highly protective of their input. They don't have an opinion on everything because they don't look at everything. They realize that 99% of what people are arguing about doesn't affect their purpose. Practice saying these 5 words: I don't have an opinion. It is one of the most powerful phrases in the English language. You don't have to have an opinion on the latest celebrity scandal, the latest political tweet, or your neighbor's new car. By refusing to have an opinion, you keep your mental energy for the things that actually build your life. The peace of non-resistance. There is a concept in martial arts called the soft style. It's the idea that you don't meet force with force. If someone pushes you, you don't push back. You step aside and let them fall past you. Being unbothered is the psychological version of this. When someone throws a bother at you, don't resist it. Don't fight it. Don't try to prove them wrong. Just let it pass through you. Imagine you are made of smoke. An arrow cannot hit smoke. It just passes through and hits the wall behind you. When you are unbothered, you are mental smoke. You have no ego for them to hit. You have no hooks for them to snag. You are free. Summary of Chapter 8. Being unbothered is not a sign that you are weak or passive. It is a sign of ultimate dominance. It shows that you are so grounded in your own reality that nothing external can shake your foundations. The world will try to bother you. It is the world's job to test you. It will send you critics, delays, and disappointments. Your job is to remain the calm center of the storm. Remember, a ship doesn't sink because of the water around it. It sinks because of the water that gets inside. Keep the world's noise on the outside. Stay focused. Stay grounded. Stay unbothered. Repetition anchor. What doesn't control your mind doesn't control your life. What doesn't control your mind doesn't control your life. What doesn't control your mind doesn't control your life. Your mind is your kingdom. Guard the gates. Do not let the botherers in. Chapter 9. Choose logic over emotion. The chariot of the mind. 2,000 years ago, the philosopher Plato described the human soul as a chariot. This chariot is pulled by 2 horses. One horse is white. It represents our noble impulses, our logic, and our higher reasoning. The other horse is black. it represents our irrational passions, our carnal desires, and our raw emotions. The charioteer is your conscious mind. His job is to hold the reins. The problem most people face is that they have let go of the reins. They have allowed the black horse of emotion to gallop wherever it wants. When the horse is angry, the chariot veers into conflict. When the horse is afraid, the chariot stops moving entirely. When the horse is lustful or greedy, the chariot crashes into poor decisions. Emotional maturity is the act of grabbing those reins with both hands. It is the realization that while the horses provide the power, the charioteer must provide the direction. Logic is your compass. Emotion is your fuel. If you let the fuel steer the ship, you will eventually run out of gas in the middle of an ocean of regret. Emotions are weather. Logic is the climate. The most dangerous mistake you can make is to treat a temporary feeling as a permanent truth. Emotions are incredibly intense in the moment, but they have a very short shelf life. Research shows that the average chemical lifespan of an emotion, from the moment it is triggered in the brain to the moment it dissipates, is only about 90 seconds. Anything you feel after those 90 seconds is just you re-triggering yourself by thinking about the event over and over. Logic, however, is stable. 2 plus 2 equals 4 when you are happy. 2 plus 2 equals 4 when you are grieving. 2 plus 2 equals 4 when you are enraged. When you base a decision on an emotion, you are building a house on a foundation of sand. When the tide of your mood changes, the house collapses. But when you base a decision on logic, you are building on granite. It doesn't matter how hard the wind blows. The decision remains sound because it was based on objective reality, not subjective vibes. The high cost of the permanent mistake. Think about the biggest regrets of your life. Nearly every one of them can be traced back to a moment where you let emotion take the wheel. The relationship you ended in a fit of pride. The job you quit because of one bad afternoon. The bridge you burned because you felt disrespected for 5 minutes. The money you spent on a whim to fill a void of loneliness. These are permanent decisions based on temporary feelings. An immature person is a slave to their current mood. If they feel lazy, they don't work. If they feel angry, they lash out. They are predictable and easily defeated. But the mature person has a logic filter. They feel the laziness, they feel the anger, but they say, I hear you, emotion. I acknowledge you. But you are not the boss today. We have work to do. Feelings are data, not directives. Choosing logic over emotion does not mean becoming a cold, unfeeling robot. In fact, people who try to suppress their emotions often end up making the worst logical decisions because they aren't accounting for all the variables. The goal is to treat your emotions as data points. If you feel anxious about a business deal, don't just back out, emotion-led. Instead, use that anxiety as data. Ask, why am I anxious? Is it because I lack information? Is it because the numbers don't add up? Or is it just because I'm afraid of success? If the logic says the deal is good, but you feel anxious because of a lack of information, the logical response is to get more information, not to run away. Emotional maturity is being able to sit in a room with your feelings, listen to what they have to say, and then politely tell them to sit in the back seat while you drive. The 10th of October, 10 rule. To bridge the gap between feeling and thinking, you need a tool. One of the most effective is the 10th of October, 10 rule. When you are about to make a decision fueled by a strong emotion, stop and ask, how will I feel about this decision in 10 minutes? How will I feel about it in 10 months? How will I feel about it in 10 years? Usually, the impulsive, emotional choice feels great for the first 10 minutes. You told them off. You bought the thing. You quit the gym. But by the 10-month mark, that decision has often become a source of stress or regret. And by the 10-year mark, it might have altered the trajectory of your life for the worse. Logic is the ability to see through the 10-minute fog and focus on the 10-year horizon. Beware the halt states. Your logic is a resource that can be depleted. When your physical body is compromised, your charioteer becomes weak and the black horse of emotion takes over. Never make a major decision, send a sensitive email, or have a serious talk when you are in a halt state. H. Hungry. Low blood sugar makes you irritable and impulsive. A. Angry. Adrenaline narrows your vision and makes you seek justice instead of results. L. Lonely. Loneliness makes you desperate for validation and prone to settling for less than you deserve. T. Tired. Exhaustion shuts down the prefrontal cortex, making it impossible to think long-term. The logical person knows that when they are in a halt state, they are compromised. They have the maturity to say, "I am too tired to discuss this right now. Let's talk tomorrow morning." This isn't avoidance, it is strategic wisdom. Real-world example, the viral insult. Imagine you are a business owner and someone leaves a scathing, unfair review of your company online. It's a lie, and it's meant to hurt you. The emotional path. You see it and your blood boils. You immediately type a response that insults the customer, calls them a liar, and defends your honor. You feel a win for about 10 minutes. But then, your response is screenshot. It goes viral. Now you look like an unhinged, unprofessional bully. You lose 20% of your customers overnight. You were right, but you destroyed your business to prove it. The logical path. You see the review. You feel the rage. You close the laptop. You go for a walk. You realize that responding in anger will only feed the troll. You wait 24 hours. You draft a calm, professional response. "We're sorry you had this experience. We'd like to make it right. Please contact us." This response makes you look like the adult in the room. Potential customers see your composure and trust you more. Logic saved your reputation. Emotion would have burned it down. The power of non-judgmental awareness. To choose logic, you must practice non-judgmental awareness. This means noticing your emotions without identifying with them. Instead of saying "I am angry," say "I am experiencing a wave of anger." Instead of saying "I am a failure," say "I am experiencing the thought that I failed." The moment you put that small distance between I and the emotion, the logic brain has room to breathe. You realize that you are the vessel that holds the emotion, not the emotion itself. You are the ocean. The emotion is just a wave. The ocean doesn't change its nature just because a wave is crashing. Summary of Chapter 9. Life is a series of forks in the road. At every fork, emotion will try to point you toward the easy path, the vengeful path, or the comfortable path. Logic will point you toward the right path, the growth path, and the disciplined path. Strength is the ability to ignore the loudest voice in your head, emotion, and listen to the quietest, steadiest voice, logic. Feel the fear, but do it anyway. Feel the anger, but respond with kindness. Feel the laziness, but get to work. When you make logic the leader and emotion the follower, you become a person of high character. You become someone people can rely on, because they know you aren't governed by the weather of your moods. Repetition anchor. Feel it, but don't follow it. Feel it, but don't follow it. Feel it, but don't follow it. Take the reins. Be the charioteer. Drive your life where you want it to go. Chapter 10. Become untouchable internally. The arrival at the center. We have traveled through the landscapes of observation, the death of the ego, the power of silence, and the discipline of logic. We have learned to dismantle our triggers and detach from the results of our labor. Now, we arrive at the ultimate destination of emotional maturity, the untouchable mind. Being untouchable does not mean you are a statue. It does not mean you have stopped feeling love, grief, excitement, or pain. To be untouchable is to have found a center of gravity so deep within yourself that no hurricane in the external world can pull you off your axis. Most people live their lives like a small boat on a rough ocean, tossed left by a criticism, flipped over by a breakup, and pushed into the rocks by a financial setback. The untouchable person is the ocean itself. The surface may be choppy, waves may crash, and storms may howl, but 500 feet below the surface, there is absolute, unmoving stillness. This is the final secret of real strength. True power is not the ability to control the world. It is the realization that the world has no power to control you. The illusion of external safety. Throughout our lives, we are taught to seek safety in things we can see and touch. We think if we have enough money in the bank, we will be safe. If we have a partner who loves us, we will be happy. If we have a prestigious title, we will be worthy. But these are all external anchors. And because they are external, they are fragile. A market crash can take the money. A betrayal can take the partner. A layoff can take the title. If your peace of mind is built on these things, you are living on borrowed time. You are effectively telling the universe, I will only be okay as long as everything goes exactly my way. The emotionally mature person realizes that this is a gambler's life. Instead of trying to make the world safe, they make themselves dangerous to adversity. They move their anchor from the shifting sands of the outside world to the solid bedrock of their own character. They build an inner citadel, a fortress of the mind where they can retreat when the world becomes hostile. Redefining failure and rejection. To the untouchable mind, the words failure and rejection lose their sting because they no longer have a definition. When you are immature, rejection is a verdict on your soul. If someone doesn't want to date you or a company doesn't want to hire you, you take it as a sign that you are less than. You allow an external event to define your internal worth. But when you are untouchable, you realize that no one can reject you without your consent. They can decline your offer, they can disagree with your opinion, and they can walk away from your life, but they cannot reject your value because your value was never in their hands to begin with. Failure becomes nothing more than a course correction. Like a GPS that says recalculating when you take a wrong turn, the untouchable mind simply looks at a setback and says, not this way. Let's try that way. There is no drama. There is no weeping over what could have been. There is only the steady, relentless movement toward growth. The radical responsibility of the self. To become untouchable, you must accept a truth that is both terrifying and liberating. No one can ruin your day without your permission. We love to blame others for our moods. He made me so angry. She made me feel guilty. The news made me depressed. When you use this language, you are declaring yourself a victim. You are saying that other people have a key to your internal dashboard and can turn the knobs of your emotions whenever they feel like it. Emotional maturity is taking that key back. It is the radical responsibility of realizing that while you cannot control what people do to you, you have 100% control over the meaning you give to their actions. If someone insults you, it is just a vibration of air hitting your eardrums. It has no power to make you angry until you process it through your mind and decide, I should be angry about this. The untouchable person chooses a different meaning. They choose to see the insult as a reflection of the speaker's pain, not their own. By taking responsibility for your interpretation, you become the sole architect of your peace. The mountain versus the weather. Imagine a great mountain. Around its peak, the weather is constantly changing. One day it is sunny and calm. The next, there is a blizzard with 100-mile-per-hour winds. Then there is lightning, rain, and thick fog. Does the mountain try to stop the rain? Does it argue with the wind? Does it feel unworthy because it's a cloudy day? No, the mountain just is. It stands there, rooted miles deep into the earth. It knows that the weather is temporary, but the mountain is permanent. You are the mountain. Your emotions, your thoughts, your critics, your bank account, and your circumstances, that is just the weather. When you are untouchable, you can watch a storm of chaos hit your life and say, it's raining today. Interesting. You don't panic. You don't hide. You just stand tall. You know that eventually, the sun will come back out. And you know that whether it's sunny or stormy, you are still the mountain. The paradox of power, surrender and command. The final stage of becoming untouchable is a strange paradox. To have total control over yourself, you must surrender your need to control anything else. The person who is always trying to control people, outcomes, and opinions is the most touchable person on earth. They are constantly stressed, constantly fighting, and constantly disappointed because the world refuses to obey them. The untouchable person surrenders. They accept people as they are. They accept the world as it is. They don't waste a single calorie of energy trying to change the unchangeables. By surrendering their resistance to reality, they gain a massive amount of energy that they can then use to command themselves. This is the secret of the untouchable leader. Because they aren't fighting the world, they have the clarity to lead themselves through it with absolute precision. They command their focus, they command their tongue, and they command their integrity. Integration, the 24-hour practice. How do you live as an untouchable human being? It isn't something you do once. It is a way of walking through the world. Every morning, remind yourself, today, I will encounter difficult people, unfair situations, and unexpected delays. These things are the weather. I am the mountain. I will observe them, but I will not become them. Every evening, ask yourself, did I hand my power to anyone today? Did I let a stranger dictate my mood? Did I let a result dictate my worth? If the answer is yes, don't judge yourself. Just observe it and resolve to be stronger tomorrow. The more you practice this, the thicker your internal skin becomes. Eventually, you reach a point where even the most devastating news cannot shake your core. You have reached the state of equanimity. You are at home in your own skin, regardless of where you are or what is happening. The final reinforcement. You were born with this strength. As a child, you didn't seek validation. You simply were. You didn't worry about outcomes. You lived in the play of the moment. But the world taught you to be fragile. It taught you to care about opinions, to fear failure, and to react to every stimulus. Emotional maturity is not about adding something to yourself. It is about unlearning the weakness the world taught you. It is a return to your natural state of power. You are now equipped. You have the tools to observe, the discipline to choose logic, the wisdom to remain silent, and the strength to stay unbothered. The world can no longer get to you unless you open the door. Close the door to the noise. Open the window to your purpose. Final repetition anchor. When you control yourself, nobody else can control you. When you control yourself, nobody else can control you. When you control yourself, nobody else can control you. Conclusion, the new strength. We started this journey with a simple premise. Emotional maturity is real strength. It isn't the strength of a loud voice or a clenched fist. It is the strength of a calm heart and a clear mind. It is the strength of the person who can stand in the middle of a fire and feel the coolness of their own internal peace. Go forth into the world. Let them talk. Let them judge. Let them succeed or fail around you. You have the secret now. You are the master of the only kingdom that truly matters, the one inside your own mind. You are untouchable. You are free. You are strong. End of audiobook.